I recommend that you create an extern bootcamp folder in your home directory. Your home directory is where the terminal will probably open up when you first launch it. Make an extern bootcamp folder in there, and then please make separate folders for every project that we work on, starting with the one we're about to do. We're going to call it PeopleFactory. So let's mkdir, M-K-D-I-R, mkdir, make a directory called PeopleFactory. Once you mook that dir, don't forget you need to change into that dir with cd space PeopleFactory. And look, I'm going to type P-E-O, then I'm going to hit tab, and it'll complete it for me. Not only is it much faster, it means I won't make any typos. So please use tab completion. It is excruciating to watch someone not use it. Reduces errors so much. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things like that over the course of the class. Boot camp is a good time to develop new habits. So now that we are in that directory, we're going to initialize an empty Git repository. Who has used Git before? Maybe half the class. Who has not used any kind of version control or source code management? Who has not used any? Okay, a few. So, as the name version control suggests, this allows us to save different versions of our application. We can rewind our history. We can reread through our history to retrace our steps. Others can read our history to see what the heck we were thinking, and so on. And we're going to be doing it a whole lot over the course of the next 3 weeks, and we'll talk about it in more detail as we do so. But for right now, we just need to make Git know about this project here. I'm also going to go ahead and clear my console so that it's not so cluttered up. I'm going to hit Command K. Control L works on Windows, or you can type the word clear just to clear that out. Command K, Control L, type clear. And I'm going to type git init space dot. Dot is the current directory. Yes, sir. Clear and hit enter. Okay, Control L. Didn't? What are you running? You running any prompt? I mean, git bash or hyper or whatever. What are you running? Okay. In the Windows one, it's CLS, I think, clear screen, if you're using a Windows prompt. Anyway, git init dot. Dot refers to the current directory, wherever you are. And it should say initialized empty Git repository. Please create new Git repositories for all of the projects we do, not just one big one for the whole project, because it makes it a whole lot easier for us to track down what you're doing. And I'm going to make lots of very small commits. Please be like me in this regard, because once again, it makes it much easier to tell what you are doing. So now we have an empty Git repository. I'm going to open this folder in Finder. On a Mac, you can say open space dot to open the current folder. On Windows, start, I think, works. Start space dot to open that folder. And we see there's nothing there. Type ls. Here, we see nothing. However, if we type ls space -LA to show hidden files, we see that there is a directory called .git. On Unix systems, anything that starts with a dot is hidden. These other two things, dot refers to the current directory, dot refers to the directory one level up in the hierarchy. But .git seems to exist, so let's open that. Open space .git, or start space .git. And you'll see we have a directory with several things in it. Config, description, head, hooks, info, objects, refs. And there's all kinds of stuff in these. Man, that's a lot of stuff for an empty directory. So this is the actual Git repository. It's there, it's just hidden from us, because we don't need to worry about the details. Git is just taking care of it. Yes? Start space .git. All right. So let's type git status to see what's up. On branch master, initial commit. Nothing to commit. Create copy files and use git add to track. Okay, whatever. What's this mean? Well, we're not going to worry too much about branches, but basically you could have two completely separate versions of your repository going on at one time and be working on them both. So they could all have information that isn't in the other, and then you could merge those together later if you wanted to. That way different developers can work on the same project and keep their own versions separate. We don't have to worry about that too much. Personally, I'm going to have a morning and an afternoon branch for every project. That's just how it's going to show up on GitHub because that's, I think, the simplest way to keep track of it. For right now, we'll just pretend that I'm on master like you are so that we can show the GitHub setup process. So let's create a file here because we have nothing in this thing yet. So let's do this. Echo prints things to the screen. So let's say echo quote hash PeopleFactory double quote. So that would, if you just do that, that's just going to print PeopleFactory to the screen. Do that again, hit the up arrow to get the previous command. Put a couple of greater than signs, and that will say, whatever you were going to print to the screen, instead, write to this file. The file, all caps, readme.md. Now we have a file called readme that has just that one line in it. Just so we have something. Let's type git status again. And we see untracked files, readme.md. Use git add to include in what will be committed. Nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. Use git add to track. Seems like git add is the next thing we should do. So let's have a closer look at what's actually happening here. Right now, readme is in our working directory. So the stuff you've changed, but that Git doesn't know anything about yet, lives in your working directory. That's what's actually on your computer. Once you use the add command, Git knows about it. And it creates a reference to it inside the actual repository in that hidden directory. And that's called the index or the staging area, depending on which part of the Git documentation you're reading. And it will often refer to it as the staging area in the output of Git's commands. The point is, that's the stuff that it now knows about and that it is prepared to commit permanently to the history as soon as you run commit. So when it's just in the working directory, it doesn't know anything about those changes. When it's in the index or when it's staged, then that is what will be committed if you were to commit. When you use the commit command, it is actually permanently added to your repository. Basically, all that really happens there is it adds a label to it. And then that's really there, and you add a message saying what you just did and explaining why that change is important. So let's do some of these things. Right now, it's just in our working directory, so let's add it. Git add, capital R, tab, so I don't misspell the name, readme.md. Now if I type git status, it's in green, and it says changes to be committed. Very good. So now we took it from the working directory and added it to the index or staging area. Now we want to commit it, which really just labels it. So I type git commit, not done yet, space, -m for message, and I will just say add readme. And now it says some stuff. Now we actually have something in our history. And if we type git log, we'll see our commit message and a timestamp and a bunch of other stuff. Hit Q to get out of this. If we type git status now, it will say on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean. Because the working tree contains the changes since your last commit, and we haven't made any more changes since then. So it's clean. So now let's sync it with GitHub. Remember, the entire repository, the entire history lives on your machine. But you can also add remotes, which are just references to servers on other machines that you can sync with. There's nothing server-oriented about Git's architecture, but there are services like GitHub and stuff that you can sync with. So let's do that. Go out to your GitHub. And add a new repository. Click the plus up here and choose New Repository. Call it PeopleFactory. It doesn't have to match the name of the folder on your local machine. There's nothing magic about those names. It's probably easier to keep track of if you give it the same name. But it doesn't actually matter. Don't initialize it with a README, because we already made one locally. You don't need to check anything else, just give it a name. And click Create Repository. Now it gives us a little more information. Create a new repository on the command line or push an existing repository from the command line. We already have a repository, right? So we can push an existing repository. So we have two commands here that we can run. And you'll notice there's a little button to copy those. So do that so that you don't mistype them. Copy them to your clipboard and just paste them right in. And it'll just run the first one, and then the second one, you'll have to hit enter. You should see something like this. Branch master set up to track remote branch master from origin. Something like that. If you look at these commands, let's look at the first one. Git remote add origin. So all this stuff in our diagram is on your computer. And then you can also have a remote like GitHub or another service. So if you want to add a remote, you use git remote add. And then you name that remote. And kind of the typical name is origin, but origin isn't a magic word. It's just the name of your remote. And then this is the address or the URL of that remote. So that's adding a reference to this remote. So then we take our local repository, the stuff that's in here, and we sync it with it by using push. So git push will sync it with a remote. We have to say which remote, however, and which branch on the remote. So we say origin master, and the -u means that from now on, it will just assume origin master whenever we're working from this branch on this repository. So from now on, we can just type git push. But this first time, we have to type all that, or paste it in, as it were. So if you look back at your GitHub, if you refresh this page, you should actually see the repository now with one commit, and you should see your README. Cool, we got it. All right, this is going to be our process. We're going to do this over and over in lots of different projects.